Hello, welcome back to Tearaway Unfolded. This is Enchanted, and today we'll be going through a fairly interesting chapter with some interesting new abilities that we'll learn. I quite like this framing of this area as well. The levels of this game generally have really good framing when it comes to how they introduce their levels. They look really good. I quite like the way the pillar kind of frames the whole shot there.
So, crows are now a force to be reckoned with. Without my help, these moors will be impossible. Those windy birds will send you tumbling through the bracken. But what if the yew could fill the sky with gales, and ripple the ground with zephyrs? Yes! That would help you beat a path. But stormy winds need stormy clouds.
So it's time to draw a cloud. I quite like these little things where you have to physically draw a shape. They're quite interesting and they allow a lot of creativity as well. And they really it's fun to kind of mess around with and see what you can do with the touchpad as well. Like see how well you can get whatever shape you're trying to make, and I'm trying to do a bit of like interesting shading and stuff with it, but like necessarily I always quite like to put some effort into it. I could just leave the cloud as that, but that's a bit boring. So I'm trying to make a little kind of a dark lining for it to make it more of a storm cloud. I think it's gone pretty well. Just apply that to the actual thing. It looks more like the cloud has a mustache, but I'm not very artistically gifted, especially on a touchpad. It's kind of weird. A little lightning bolt for a little badassery. And there we go. Quite a nice little cloud.
Yes! Now blow, breeze, and blast!
I quite like that mechanic. It reminds me a lot of Drawn to Life, which I never actually beat, but I played very briefly when it was relatively new. Years ago. I also like how weirdly human the sounds of the wind is. It adds a little bit of creepiness to it. I quite like the whole area in general. It's a very nice music to it, and I quite like the whole this purple area as well. You kind of like the green shows you the path you need to take, but there is some stuff hidden in the purple as well. I quite like the purple; it's very atmospheric. And also, the wind in general is a very fun mechanic to play with now that we can actually control it with the touchpad. Yeah, I literally forgot I was recording there. Sorry, and to be going silent for a bit. Now, I quite like the way everything reacts to the breathing and everything, and the music in general is quite fun as well. I like how the music doesn't start until the wind does as well. Especially given the kind of accordion aspect, and given the accordion makes it sound by forcing air through it, it kind of fits that the accordion doesn't really start playing. It seems that the accordion is some kind of wind instrument. I'm not really good at recognising that kind of thing, but either way, it's something relating to wind, and that's a clever bit of musical storytelling. I'm an idiot, I think it's a violin. I quite like these little areas, though, with like all the bridges and stuff, and the tapestries that you need to turn into bridges. That's quite a neat little idea. And of course, it's kind of a maze as well. It's a very atmospheric area, though. I quite like the whole like Lost Battleground aesthetic. It's a very cool thing to have going on. Yeah, because that was white, I thought that was going to be a thing, but it's not. It's just that coat of arms is just white. I wasn't sure if it would colour in, I think I'd check it out. I quite like that some of the tapestries are completely torn up as well. Of course, that results in them being dead ends, but it's like a, again, it helps kind of sell the whole war-torn idea. I've got clearly the war was between unicorns and these kind of lion-looking things as well. It gives you an idea that something happened here long ago, and that the lions seem to have done pretty well for themselves, given all of the discarded stuff is all unicorn stuff. I always quite like that kind of visual storytelling. Also, while a few of the unicorn banners have survived, most of the surviving banners are just lions. Let's make a coat of arms now. That'll be fun. Little star. Kind of like a Napoleon squid at the moment. It's kind of a mess so far, but it's a thing. Add a little bit of a inverted comma for some reason. I'm just kind of messing around right now. I'm just adding random stuff, not really having any idea in mind. It's apparently the new faction is the Portuguese man of war. So there we have it. Now that the lions and unicorns have killed each other, now the Portuguese man of war reigns supreme. Or men of war, I guess. The Portuguese men of war. A fitting species to win the war overall because of the whole literal man of war thing. I didn't even intentionally draw that. I was just messing around with the bits and just putting whatever shapes down that came to mind. And as you can see, again, as I mentioned, there are things hidden in this purple area. It kind of like shows where you can't go by having all this fog everywhere as well. It's a very kind of maze-like area with all the purple bits. And of course, I've come the wrong way to get that present. We have to go a different direction for that one. I thought there's always a combination of little things that are controlled by the breeze and larger things that are controlled by the breeze. It gives it a good sense of texture. Like, it's not just a key that unlocks a door or whatever by blowing over a big thing. It's also like a part of the world itself, because it makes the grass change and everything as well.
Where did they come from?
Nothing to do with me. It's those crows. I told you they were cunning.
Fascinating. The messenger and there you are not the only ones working together now.
Oh dear, the scraps and the ravens. I quite like you can just use the wind to blow them off, that's quite fun. It doesn't always work because of course a lot of the arenas like one will be enclosed, and there are a lot of enemies that don't just jump at you, and sometimes they do other things as well, but this is a tutorial, so of course they're all going to jump at you. The problem is when they start combining jumping with spinning, because that can be very hard to deal with if you don't know which one they're going to do, and you end up doing the wrong thing to try and counter it and getting hit. It's so irritating. I'm generally terrible at the combat in this game. There are doors, but because the doors are just made of sheets of paper, they can't stand up on their own. They're just kind of fallen over. Because unlike everything else, it's kind of joined into corners. The doors don't really have any structure to them. They're just a floppy piece of paper, while the walls all kind of have each other holding them up. That's very well hidden, little scribble picture. I quite like its shades in that little preview as well. I also quite like that so many of the things you draw have things that apply throughout the entire rest of the world, like the crown that you draw for the squirrel appears throughout the game anytime there needs to be a crown on the decal somewhere. Like those crowns showing up there are the crown I drew right at the beginning of the game. Hence the fact that they look like a complete mess. I also quite like all the shading and stuff too. It's not just like painted on, it actually is layers of paper forming the images. It's a nice little touch to have those shadows there to give them that kind of depth. So it also gives an idea that maybe they're not fully glued down as well, which is nice and realistic, because whenever you're trying to glue paper, it's often imperfect, so the glue never completely adheres to the entire thing. There's a little bit of realism there. Oh dear, we have scraps to deal with. And of course here we don't really know where to throw them off to, so we can just kind of... But as long as we just stun them, we can just throw them and they'll immediately die. And it's kind of hard to see them in this area as well, because they're kind of all over the place in random places. And of course then you mistime the actual breeze, and that's really annoying too. Or I do, because I'm bad at the game. I like all the little sounds they make as well, it's quite cute. The scraps in general are very adorable. And here we are, we finally are in the right place to get this little chest. Or the present, rather. The problem with the grass is you have to kind of keep the breeze going consistently, because otherwise it just pops right back up again and gets in the way. So you have to kind of keep stroking the touchpad to keep the grass down. And here we have a little secret thing we can play with. Let's mess around with these. I feel like it shows you that you can use the breeze on the barrels by having these storm clouds painted on them as well. It's a neat little tell. I just generally having storm clouds all over the place whenever you have to solve a puzzle. And also, this is quite a neat little puzzle. You have to use the wind in conjunction with the touchpad to bounce the barrels up there, so they can fill in that little gap. I quite like when it combines mechanics in that way. It's quite fun to kind of mess around with the touchpad and just do different things with it. Of course, you have to be careful not to get crushed by your own barrels. That was me being a complete idiot. So let's finish this puzzle when we get back over there, shall we? There we go. There's not really much else up there. Which is weird. You'd think that wouldn't be the end of it. It's just some like glitter, little confetti up there. You'd think there'd be more up there, but you can't really do anything else with this area. It's kind of a weird kind of place to end it. At least I'm not aware of anything else you can do up there anyway. I quite like the way that gate actually kind of peels back rather than just blowing over it. Again, the way the paper reacts differently to different things gives it the extra texture. And of course here we have these spinny platforms. So you have to be very careful here, because sometimes anytime the wind happens, it makes the thing spin around. So if you're on them and the crows start making wind, that can cause problems. But you can also use it to your advantage as well by spinning them while the scraps are on them. If I don't get knocked into a pit like an idiot. I do quite like the goofy music for the scraps, and yeah, they all kind of jumped in after me, didn't they? So, luckily the scraps are quite stupid. If you fall into a pit, they'll probably jump in after you. I like the somewhat creepy kazoo music as well. There's a fun aesthetic to it, musically. But of course, sometimes you have to kind of get the right path as well. That's kind of the tricky part of these kind of areas in this level, is figuring out how to make the path that you want to make. Like, sometimes like that, it just happens, but sometimes you have to kind of change it a few times to get the path you need. It's just this particular area is kind of an easy one because it's introducing the whole mechanic of the hexagonal spinny papers. Yeah, as you can see, we're coming up with a fairly large area of maze tapestries. I quite like the ruined castle areas as well. It gives a lot of kind of the idea that these were probably different sides of the war and everything like that. They probably had different bases that we're currently going through. I mean, the fact that this place's banner is neither unicorn or lion, it may end up being that this area was actually a neutral area in the war that more followed the breeze itself. That's just me making stuff up completely out of whole cloth. It probably because you wanted the storm cloud image there. But here we have a somewhat tricky mechanic that we need to do now, which is, of course, riding on these. This one's fairly easy because it's big. But, of course, the mechanic does get harder later on as they get smaller and therefore faster, and you have to kind of stay on top of it. So, of course, if you fall off, you have to blow it all the way back. And then climb all the way up there again. But happily, we've got a shortcut going on now, which is very nice. I quite like that creepy hand over that little stump as well. That's a neat little aesthetic thing. Of course, the fact that that hand's kind of creepy is kind of one that you don't want to mess with it. But of course I wanted to mess with it. Because that's what I'm here for. It's a game. I'm here to mess with everything. And see what happens. It just so happens that that one reveals scraps. It's a bad hand. And of course, there's a bit of a secret here by blowing this tapestry away that just happened during the rest of the thing. And of course, behind these barrels, we have more secrets. I like the draft dudes, they're pretty cool. Now I have a papercraft version, yay. Slightly creepy colouring in that little image though. With like the weird pink and white, it makes it look kind of like some kind of weird zombie thing, like a lot of like weird flesh and bone colours, like some kind of like a weird Resident Evil monster. I wonder how many eyes it has and where they are. I quite like that some structures actually struggle to get blown over as well, the bigger and hardier ones. That's a neat little bit of realism that I quite enjoy. Let's get across this little area now, shall we? You! At least he went with me. I hate when they do that, it's so annoying. There's also the reason that I've never 100%ed this game as well, because the particular side quests that the enemies make really annoying, that I'll be bringing up later on when we actually unlock it. But there's an element coming up in this video I'm going to point out to kind of show you what it's related to at least, even if I'm not telling you exactly what the side quest is yet. I quite like that the paths get more and more winding, and of course now we have to deal with these barrels as well, and different sizes of barrels too. There's a lot of like, this is going to be quite an interesting little puzzle to solve. Also quite a tricky one because of the whole staying on the barrels thing being quite tricky. Because that's not going to work, so we have to blow it the other direction to get it completely off. This is just generally a bit of a weird platforming bit anyway. I'm not really a fan of this little bit, because you have to get on there. Then that happens, because I missed the thing. It's like, it's kind of weird, because it's a little bit too... like it's not quite tall enough to jump onto, and of course there, they've got away from me a bit. And I can't jump on them from there, so I have to bring them all the way back. And try and get on it again, and just try to stay on it without falling off. But as you can see, it's quite tricky to actually do that, because of how small this particular barrel is and how fast it moves in relation to everything else. So you really have to take this bit slowly to avoid that happening over and over and over again. Of course, here's a little guy who's got stuck underneath the barrel. Unfortunately, I can't squish him, he's just got stuck under the barrel, but... kind of a shame we can't squish him with the barrel because it's in the wrong position, though. That's a little bit of a shame. Or at least I couldn't because it put him in a bad position. I call it different little visual things in this area, in this whole area, like these little weird statue things, and other like unique bits of set dressing you don't really get elsewhere. Not sure whether they're meant to be headstones for a graveyard or something like that. It's not very clear, but they're a cool sort of a visual thing. Given it's a battlefield, it may well be a graveyard. Also, quite sometimes that happens where like the place gets kind of obscured and you have to make it come up. But yeah, this is when it starts spinning and jumping at you, so that can be quite tricky to deal with if you don't guess what they're going to do correctly. Yeah, like as I mentioned earlier, I'm very, very bad at the combat in this game. I've just never been able to master it very well. There we go. Dealt with. That's a cute bit of product placement though. It's just like, oh, I was so distracted by this really fun app that's also out. Please download this app so you can play with it. Now, there's mechanics in this game that I can't use because it require, some of the mechanics later on require like a PS4 microphone, and I don't have one of those, that kind of thing. It's just, well, there's nothing really necessary though. It is purely optional stuff. It does require peripherals that I've never bought. But yeah, this is where the actual breezing starts in earnest, with the crows getting in your way completely. You have to really time it well, because no matter what you do to throw the breezing, the crows will do the breeze at the same timing each time. So it's generally best for them to take the pace of this area. At least I took him with me. Again, most of the combat in this game for me at least comes down to kamikazing everything and just hoping it deals with it. I don't know if it's spawned in though. They are being like flown in by the crows, like they're being airdropped in. That's quite a cute visual thing. I quite like how much atmosphere they can get out of relatively silly instruments as well. Like you have the kazoo, I think that's going to be a kazoo anyway. But then also like the violins are mostly doing like pizzicato and things, just to add a bit of like an offbeat aspect to it. This one's a bit annoying to get past because of that bit, but this is the thing. This is related to a side quest that I will not be showing me doing because I'm very bad at it. I'll explain it when we get to it though. But it's not unlocked yet, so we can't do anything with it yet. I quite like this big tower though, it's a pretty cool area. I quite like the whole like revealing the art and everything like that, and of this like lion outpost and stuff, peeling back the walls. It's a cool idea. I quite like the escalation of the wind mechanic as well. Like it starts off just like blowing down individual walls, and now we've just blown down an entire tower. It's a fun escalation there. You thought the physical buttons were enough of a meta-narrative thing. No. The main character literally broke... Atois literally broke the fourth wall. And now, I actually have this object. In universe, at least I'm supposed to have this object in my hand. Obviously, I don't physically have the paper ball in my hand, but... that's what's meant to be going on in universe. I actually have it with me in my living room. And I'm throwing it back to the controller into the tree. I quite like that kind of thing where it makes you an active player. Like, you're not just pressing buttons and making Atois do everything. Now you are yourself doing stuff. Like, you're not just controlling the weather anymore. You're actively controlling the entire, like, the world itself by interacting with it more directly. Like, before it was just button prompts to make Atois do stuff. And then button prompts to make the weather do stuff. But now it's no longer button prompts. Now it's just something the main character is supposed to be actually doing. And by main character I mean of course the player. I keep messing this up. I'm trying to throw him into the screen but I'm messing it up. There we go. Finally we have the key.
Do not mourn the loss of a key. Such trinkets are not needed when you've a friend as powerful as the wind.
You what? You must be joking. Wind's no use against those crows.
Oh, yes. But now, you can blast away inside the barn and find something that scares away those crows once and for all.
Well, if that's your plan, you'd better hurry up. Those crows are in a right flap. You know what they say? There's nothing worse than an angry crow! Oh!
In the right flap is a very kind of a British saying. I don't think that's a phrase that really comes up in American English much. And generally, flap is essentially British slang for like in a tizzy, in a mood, that kind of thing, in that kind of like an emotional state where you're kind of angry and annoyed and frustrated and lashing out. But now we have that shortcut in the bridge as well. And of course, now we have a very obvious shortcut home. Let's make use of it, shall we? Of course, we can't get back up there, so this is the only way back as well. I do quite like this mechanic though, it's a neat idea, and I quite like how they, as the game goes on, it makes you more and more of an actual part of the world. Like, you're actually part of the narrative, and will be increasingly so throughout the game. I quite enjoy the way it does that, it's very ingenious, very cute. But of course the problem there is it needs to be hitting directly in the center of the target, it can't just hit the edge of the crack or whatever, it has to hit right in the middle. So you have to get the right camera angle as well before you do the throwing it into the speaker thing, because when it's in the speaker you can't move the main character, I don't think. It kind of freezes everything but throwing it back out. So let's head back to the moor, shall we? What are the fields? So let's head to the barn, shall we? Because as you can see, not only has the door got a keyhole, it's also got quite a sizable crack. So let's make very good use of that, shall we? Worry not. Door's now open. And now we have our flashlight back as well because this is a dark area. And so now we have the next area. So we'll be doing this of course in the next video because this video is quite a long one already. So I'll see you next time for when we actually navigate the barn and find a way to permanently get rid of those crows for good. As you can see, we're very close to the end of this the valley fold. We've only got 2 more areas to get through. So I'll see you then. Goodbye.